Welcome to the State of Affairs in partnership with Serbian Radio Chicago. We're having conversations that matter. Joining me today, somebody from Germany. He is a member of German Parliament on behalf of Alternative for Germany, or AFD, Mr. Petr Bystron. Welcome.
Hello, dobar dan.
Dobar dan. Great to see you. Dobro. Kako ste vi?
Ja sam odlično. Hvala.
Odlično, very good. I love that we can start like this. So I'm looking forward to this.
Sorry.
Excellent, excellent. Our listeners are very excited about this interview. We have announced it already, so a lot to unpack, a lot going on. But first things first, AFD has been surging in the polls. We see that you are one of the fastest growing parties in Germany. You're neck and neck there with Angela Merkel's party and Olaf Scholz's party. So what is changing in the German political landscape so that your party is surging forward?
No, we are not only one of the fastest growing parties, we are the party, the fastest growing party. We are the most successful party after the Second World War. In fact, we started just 10 years ago, and we entered all state parliaments. We are now in the federal parliament for the second time. We are also in the European Parliament. So this is a success story which the post-war Germany haven't seen before. Now there is a next climate. We reached 20% in the polls. This is more than the ruling parties of liberals, more than the ruling party of Greens has, and it's the same as the socialists who are also ruling. This is the party of Chancellor Scholz. They has also 20%. So we overrun all three ruling parties. So the only party which has still a little bit more than we, it's the Conservatives, CDU.
Sure.
But we are the second strongest party now. So that's a nice situation. Yeah.
Excellent.
You're asking why? There are two factors, I would say, external factors and internal. The external factor is the government is so creepy, it's so bad. It's like Joe Biden in the US and even worse. So people really hate them. They don't like what they're doing, and it's like the same like in the US and over Europe. They just to explain it, they are globalist government. So globalist means they promise to the people before of election things they know that the people want to hear, and immediately after election, they are not fulfilling their promises. They are just serving global financial groups, big corporations on the costs of people. And we are a true populist movement, populist party, like Donald Trump was in the US. He was a populist president. It means to be there for the people, for middle class, for normal people who are working, who are paying taxes. And this is the reason why they're coming to us. And the second and last very special reason is that we have been, for the last 3 years, constantly with the people, even on the streets. The people were demonstrating during the Corona pandemic, so-called pandemic. They had been heavily demonstrating against what the government was doing to them. We have had some 300,000 people every Monday on the streets, and the only political party which is in the parliament, which was with the people on the streets, was the AFD. We have been there with them, and there a very interesting thing happened. Those demonstrators were not only conservative right-wing. A lot of them used to be formerly voters for left Greens. Or around 30% of them used to vote Greens in the past, 12% of them even far left. And then now they were on the streets with us and they saw, whoa, those are normal people. They are not so far right as we have been told in the television before. And then they went home and they were told by the public television in the evening that they are fascists, Nazis, and so on. And then they realize, well, obviously to me is now happening the same what happened to the people from the AfD a couple of years ago. So for the first time in history, we have now people who are going to vote for us who are not coming from the conservative part of the society, but even from the left part, because they understood that that there is no right, left. There is just populist against globalists, and this is why we have now such a support in the society.
Yes, and that is, as you mentioned, very similar situation in the United States, but it seems like it's the same situation across Europe. As conservatives in America, we are looking from the outside in, and it seems that Germany, but the rest of Europe as well, is almost shooting itself in the foot. And I know that your platform, your party particularly, talks a lot about immigration, and you especially sit on the Committee of Foreign Policy. So how do Europeans regain their own national identities again, and how do they fight back, particularly this media smears that are constantly geared towards them?
Oh, well, this is, of course, a very difficult, very hard task for any of our populistic movements, and I mean in Austria and Spain and Italy, everywhere, because the globalists are acting globally. They have all the media, or at least the access, or very often they own them. And they have the big corporations behind them, so they have also money. So what is happening is that the populist movement sometimes reach the government, like it happened with Salvini in Italy, or with Strache in Austria, or now with the Sweden Democrats in Sweden. But so we win locally, but they always manage it to push it down after some 2-3 years. So we have to connect and to work together and fight them on a global scale.
Understood, but there seems to be a little bit of change in narrative, at least with, as you said, regular people. They seem to be waking up. They are understanding that the current situation is detrimental to their own future. I don't know if you saw yesterday in Bordeaux, France, there was this attack on a little girl and a lady, I believe it's her caregiver. The girl in Greece, Polish girl, was killed by migrants. I mean, the situation is detrimental for Europeans. Are they waking up?
Of course they are, because we are a part of a big process. You know, a lot of things are changing on a global scale, but also on a local scale, and everybody's life. Things are changing, and people now, they confronted with problems every day. They even didn't know, even not from TV news, you know. And so now they're beginning to understand that a lot of the explanations they've got from politicians or from the media are lies, are really bloody lies. And they starting to protest against it and to organize themselves to somehow save their lives as they used to be in the past. You know, they would like to keep the country as it was. So what they have experienced in their childhood, they would like to give the country in the same shape to their kids. And this is really very, very difficult. Especially, you mentioned migration. We have millions of migrants coming from countries which are absolutely not compatible with the European way of life, with the Christian values, even with the working ethos of Western Europe, you know, and all those factors are causing a heavy problems.
So Brexit was one of the big things that happened recently in Europe. how do you see Germany's future within the European Union, or how do you see the future of European Union and even NATO in light of this conflict in Ukraine currently?
Two big points. First, Brexit was a huge success of Nigel Farage, my good friend. He did really a great job. He managed to do something what nobody was expecting, at least all the globalists. You know, it was the same as Donald Trump, as he defeated Hillary Clinton. It was the same. Nigel Farage, he managed to get this yes for Brexit in Britain. And of course, it was a big bang in the European Union, because people show them that if you ask them in free democratic way, you let them to do a plebiscite, that they say, well, we don't want to be told from Brussels what we have to do in London.
Yes.
Oh, that was the main reason, that there are polls which ask the people why they voted for Brexit, and they said, yeah, we don't want to be told from Brussels what we have to do in England. And the second reason was again the migration problem. So they said, we don't want to be said from Brussels which kind of migrants and how many migrants we should have here in England. So this is, of course, was a very important thing for all other European countries, because everybody understood, even in Czech Republic, in Poland, in Hungary, in Italy, everybody understood, well, it is possible to leave this organization. So, and now
and not be dictated by unelected bureaucrats.
Exactly. But you're speaking like Nigel Farage. you could join the Brexit party.
Well, I'm a Trump girl after all.
Well, but the current situation is, and I'm saying it again and again, the whole European Union is sticking together just because of the German money. So one day after Germany would stop paying this whole thing, the EU would be over, because immediately a lot of countries would leave. They are there just because they're receiving money, and they're saying, okay, till now I accept some things from Brussels because we're receiving so many billions for it, and we accept it. But in the moment they would not get the money, Poland would be out, Hungary would be out immediately. I guess even Spain, Italy, other countries would leave. So this is one point. NATO, completely different question. In fact, NATO was a very successful organization, and we, even as a party, we supported the membership in the NATO, as long as it remains what it was. It was first a defense organization, and second, North Atlantic Treaty. Well, it means organization to defend this space in North Atlantic and Western Europe. But what happened in the last, well, let's say 30 years, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, NATO is transforming to interventionist organization. Is it just a organization which helps the US to reach their goals, their global targets, with the help of some allies. And the next step is the engagement in Asian, South Asia, Pacific, which is far away from North Atlantic.
North Atlantic, yes.
Well, this is a point where a lot of people are saying, well, it has to be done something, because this development is dangerous and we don't want it. And it started in fact in Yugoslavia, 1999.
Yes.
Where the NATO started the first, it was war against a sovereign country, and there was no United Nations mandate for it. Very dangerous.
Or even United States congressional approval for it.
Yeah, you name it.
Interestingly, and many have said that NATO really needed to be abolished after the fall of the Iron Curtain because it didn't have a role. So it did reinvent itself essentially with Yugoslavia. But now this conflict in Ukraine, how is Germany playing a role, and how do regular Germans see the role that the German government is playing in NATO and obviously in arming Ukraine?
Let me say one more sentence to the role of NATO, because it's connected even with the Ukrainian conflict. You are absolutely right. There was a chance at the beginning of the 90s. There was a chance for Europe, for the USA, for the NATO to transform NATO, to create a new security concept for the whole European space, even involve Russians into this concept of common security, and it didn't happen. I just would like to refer the facts. You know, the Soviet Union turned out all the troops out of Germany, out of Eastern Europe, from Czech Republic, Hungary, you know, Poland, and the US did not. NATO remained. Even there was no more enemy. You know, the Soviet bloc collapsed. There were no more communists. All the countries become democratic, and nobody, even the Russians, said we are trying or we are seeing the Western countries as enemies. On contrary, you know, all said, yeah, we would like to work together. But it was the NATO who explicitly started to write in their conceptions always, yeah, we see Russia, maybe Iran and other countries as our enemies. And you know, it graduated into this conflict now in the Ukraine.
Okay.
Well, and now we are in the Ukraine. What is happening there is that we see that there is a new iron curtain or a new red line across Europe. You know, this is a geopolitical action which is happening there. The US, they just expanded their zone of influence.
Okay.
They're very successful with it. They come nearly to the border of Russia. Russia took action. Now there is the conflict. It's on the cost of Ukrainian people.
Yes.
There is a saying here in Germany. We are saying, you ask what the people think, and people think that there is a fight till the last Ukrainian, you know.
Exactly. And we say that here in the United States.
Yeah, and this is what is in effect is. And the people also see that this is a big business. It's mostly about to push all the old weapons, all the military systems from the former Soviet times, from Middle and East Europe into the Ukraine, to be destroyed there in this conflict, and to deliver to the Middle and Eastern European countries Western military technique from the West, and to buy a new one in the West. So we have a big clearance. All the old stuff goes to the Ukraine, is there destroyed in the war, and yeah, the place is free to be filled with new weapons mostly from US production. So this is a huge business.
But so what we see here, obviously, and I'm sure you do too, there is a war plan, and you have expanded that well. Is there a peace plan? What is the position of your party on actually securing peace? Because this is costing Germany more than anybody, economically and in all other ways.
Of course, we have been criticizing that, and the answer was by the establishment that we had been defeated even more heavily than before. But our party is the only party which presented even a peace plan in the parliament, and it was also defeated very heavily by groups of transatlantics and by globalists. And the peace proposal is very easy. We just said that there must be a ceasefire. The ceasefire must be controlled by the United Nations, and afterwards the people should decide where they want to live. You know, they should do a plebiscite and ask them. And well, if they want to live in Russia, the parts should be Russian, and the parts where the people want to be Ukrainian should be Ukrainian. Or if they want to declare themselves for independent in some new kind of republic, they should be independent. But the people should decide, not some politicians, you know, on a green table.
Now, I have to connect this, obviously, to the renewed crisis in the Balkans, in Kosovo in particular. You have been very vocal on this issue. What is your stance, I guess, on this entire situation? Obviously, it's been frozen since the 1990s, and the worst thing we could possibly do is keep military there to secure this quote unquote peace in a fragile region. How do you see this current crisis?
Well, again, this is similar like in Ukraine, but it happened just 24 years before. Mm-hmm. It's about strategic geopolitical interests of the US. The USA wanted to have military bases in the region. They build up the second largest military base on the European continent. The biggest is in Ramstein in Germany. The second one is in Kosovo.
Bondsteel.
Yeah, obviously they destroyed the existing country, which was Yugoslavia, just to get this. And they promised to all of us, then that Kosovo will prosper. And now, 24 years later, we see that Kosovo still is just a protectorate of USA and of the European Union, and it doesn't work.
It's unsustainable, obviously.
Of course, it's totally unsustainable. I'm refusing to name it a state. You know, this something. I think Donald Trump would say a shithole, but it's not my wording. is not able to stay alive without help from outside. And more than this, I would go just up on the other level. You know, look at this. How was Kosovo created? It was done by injustice. You said it, and there was even no approval from U.S. Congress for this war. There was no approval from the United Nations for this war. So it was a military action and injustice. And when you create something based on injustice, it never can become justice.
Understand.
So, and this. Everybody knows, and many countries didn't recognize Kosovo as a state. Among them, China, Russia, but even European countries. There are, I think, 5 countries in the European Union who did not recognize Kosovo as a country. Spain among them, or Slovakia and other countries. Greece, exactly. This is creating huge complications, and what we are facing now is that the European Union is ignoring this. They are completely ignoring those facts, and they are pushing Kosovo. They, in this moment, in these days, the next weeks, they are trying to put Kosovo into the Council of Europe, and of course they are enforcing Kosovo to become a member of the European Union. And that's absolutely crazy.
Well, and I must ask, in this recent crisis, obviously under Albin Kurti, he seems to not even listen to the Americans anymore, because we have heard the State Department strongly condemn the recent unilateral escalation. It came from the United States, it came from Europe, it came from all corners of the Western world. However, what we hear also is that Albin Kurti has the support of the current German government and also of the elements of the British government. Is this what is making it also very complicated? Because he seems to have this wind at his back and he's continuing. So it's very interesting for us to observe that even Americans cannot stop him. Is that, how do you see that?
But this is typical for US foreign policy, and the USA always very often supporting some groups in their countries, often even terrorists. Just think about how they financed and supported Mujahideen in Afghanistan in the 80s just to fight against the Soviet Union, and you know, in other countries is the same. And then they realized that those groups just using their money, their weapons, to reach their own targets, you know. So for them, the USA are just a kind of support for a period of time, but they have their own interests. And
Sure.
then Kosovo, just remember how it was in Kosovo. There was a UÇK was a terrorist organization. It was declared officially as a terrorist organization, and the US were supporting a terrorist organization to destroy existing state of Yugoslavia. Now they are wondering, oh, what a surprise! Those people coming from those roots, from UÇK, they are not doing what we want for 100%. They have their own agenda. Well, of course they have, but you
and they always
finance them. So.
But back to that. Again, what is Germany's role in all of this? Yeah, well, is there one?
Yes, Germany's role is to be the executor of US interests in Europe, and Germany is doing exactly what is expected by Washington. Germany is heavily pushing Kosovo into the European Union. Well, that's the role of Germany, the current role. And you see, I mean, it was Germany for the first time since the Second World War that Germany participated on a war action. 1999. It was the first war where German troops participated after the Second World War.
Yes, against Yugoslavia and against Serbia.
The bombing of Yugoslavia, yeah, under the Green and Socialist government, Gerhard Schröder and Joschka Fischer.
Yes, interesting. And I have to ask you, just in general now, looking at the world overall, and the policies that we've had under President Donald Trump and now under President Biden, we obviously here in the United States can feel a huge difference. But I am sure you feel it in Europe as well, because the world seems to implode ever since President Trump left. How are the Europeans seeing this?
Yeah, it's a change of paradigm because we see that Biden is turning the United States to something which is not anymore standing for the original values of the USA. And I just can recommend you my speech. I had this to this topic in the German parliament just a few weeks ago. We can put it in one sentence, you know, the United States under Biden, they are not standing anymore for stars and stripes. They are now standing for the pride flag. And this is what the Biden administration, what the globalists have done to this country. This is causing enormous problems because all the friends and allies of the United States, of the true United States, as we know them from the past, they are now wondering what is happening. You know, the Germans are asking ourselves, did our friend and ally, the USA, destroyed our critical infrastructure with Nord Stream 2? You know, there are many signs which are showing that it was the US. Simon Hirsch did
Yes.
wrote a really interesting article about this. So it changed a lot in the politics, and many people wish that it would turn back. We are strong supporters of Donald Trump, and we strongly hope and believe that he can win again, and that he can turn the US back to the right path.
And one last thing, could you see in the future derecognition of Kosovo? Because what is your position on a path forward for this brewing crisis?
Well, I was preparing. Well, we did a paper in the parliament to ask the German government to do this, exactly this, and obviously this is hitting the nail on the head, because there were very heavy reactions on it. So the globalists and wants for sure stop all discussions about this. But this is what Serbia should try put into the discussion on the international level, what other countries could also support. Because you know, again, I said it was injustice in 1999. Now 24 years later, we see that even the promises could not be fulfilled, and that was a wrong thing to do it. So why not to say, well, we have done a mistake, we should repair this mistake, and let's see it this way. 20 years ago, it was not possible. 10 years, impossible. But now we have a complete change of paradigm on a global scale. There is no more monopolar world. The total dominance of the USA over the whole world is over. We are all now facing a multipolar world with new points of gravitation. China is playing a bigger and bigger role.
Yes.
China did not recognize Kosovo. Russia is still a player. All the BRICS countries are big players in this multipolar world. And if they will start on an international scale this discussion, it may happen, because all the countries who will blindly follow the recognition are the countries from the bloc of the US bloc. So
but of the globalist bloc.
Yeah, the globalist bloc. In fact, the globalist bloc. And there will be more and more countries which could de-recognize or to retreat their recognition. It's just a question of negotiation.
Sure. Well, President Trump and former ambassador to Germany, Richard Grenell, were taking this issue in a different way, and were not concerned about recognition, really, but they were at least trying to do some sort of economic development. Do you think that was at least a little bit of a different course from Clinton's and the Bidens?
I'm not going to comment anything what Rick is doing.
Okay. Makes sense.
He's a good friend of Donald Trump. He is on the right side, and sometimes he's not doing the right thing.
Okay, understood. Anything else that we may have missed that you would like to tell our listeners? Many Serbs are in Germany, one of the huge populations outside of Serbia in the United States and in Germany as well. So anything else that we need to know?
Stay together, stay strong, support your guys like Novak Djokovic, and we will succeed. Volim vas.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today. Hvala. I vidimo se.